Hope everybody's doing well and has recovered from that turkey dinner that was held last week and all along those lines because Thanksgiving was this past Thursday. I know that I went up to my mom's house in Rocky Mount, which is just about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours up the road, but here in North Carolina still. And all along those lines, and we had a good turkey dinner. Had a game of spinners afterwards because that's kind of what we do in my family. We play games at some point or another. In the past, it's been Scrabble. The last several years, it's been spinners, which, if you are not familiar with the game, is very much like dominoes and all along those lines. But we definitely had some fun competition. There was even some friendly bets going on that involved something about jerseys. I think that was with my brother and my cousin, or one of my cousins, I should say, and all along those lines. But definitely with some fun games. I think I managed to shock my brother because he was thinking I wasn't going to win any game, and I think I won the second game. But I think definitely I know that one of those games might have been won by cousin John, or there might have been another winner as well. I know I only won one because in that last game I finished in dead last place. So I went from being a champion to in last place. So that wasn't all that great and all that fun. But of course, there was great food, as there always is at a Thanksgiving dinner. So when I get to Nancy, I'm going to find out what kind of meal she had down there in Florida and all along those lines. But it was definitely some good company and learning what folks are up to. With two of my aunts were there with the mom and everything. Aunt Julie was there already, I think, when we got there, me and my brother and my two nephews, as I don't have any kids of my own and everything. So I'm glad that Julius is thinking about going off to um, school. He's been accepted by 4 universities and all along those lines, all here in the state of North Carolina. But he's looking at majoring in poli-sci with a concentration and eventual degree in law and working in the field of social justice. His younger brother, who's 1 year younger, is thinking about chemical engineering, but he doesn't have to worry about what schools he's going to till next year. But it's good to see that they are in that process of getting into that education space and getting that degree. I was talking to one of our founders of the network. He didn't think poli-sci was the move. He thought that he should go into English. And Nick Palveda, one of the founders of the network, is a lawyer and all along those lines. But I think that because I'm a poli-sci minor and my cousin, I believe John was a poli-sci major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. One of the schools that he hasn't put on the list yet, but who knows, maybe that'll be on his list because his cousin or his, that would be his second cousin, I guess, and technically and everything like that. Jonathan is a member of that organization. No, that's not right. That would be his. No, I would be his uncle. So you're right. I guess that's second cousin. I always get those things confused, and all along those lines, what your cousins is to your nephews and everything. So maybe Nancy's got an idea in that space and along those lines, but we're going to see what she's got to say about this whole dating profile world and all along those lines when I bring her in very shortly and all in that space. But I know that both Jonathan and Tanya went to UNC Charlotte, so they're trying to hope or persuade my nephews to put that school on their list right now. The school ones he's been accepted to are Appalachian State, Western Carolina, UNCG, and North Carolina Central University. And I think all four of them have good poli-sci departments and all along those lines. And over at the Hayti Heritage Center, we had a couple of events recently. I think it was on Saturday that the Hillside, which is one of our local schools' soccer team, was having like an awards banquet. So they had a small crowd, maybe about 56 people or something like that. But there was some good food at that event. And I heard a lot of people that were being honored for their play in soccer and all along those lines. And then yesterday we had our open house celebrating 50 years of being a cultural arts center. So unfortunately, there's this thing called rain, and a lot of people don't like to go out in the rain no matter where you're at, because today it's a nice day. It's probably like in the 50s or something like that. So it's not too bad. It might get colder later on this evening and all in that space, but it was definitely raining pretty much the majority of the morning and even into a little bit of the afternoon and stuff like that. So we probably didn't have the attendance that we would have liked, but that's okay. Folks were still there and learning about the history of Hayti, what we're doing now, some of the things that we are looking at going into as we are now having a transition in leadership and all along those lines. So it ought to be interesting to go on and see what's happening in that space. I saw some old friends, including some that used to work with me at the Arts Council, like Annette Smith and Yvonne Coleman, who used to run the Arts Council and all along those lines. And I saw some other new friends and old friends. And one of those new friends actually relates to what Nancy is all about, because they are from Ecuador and they're in one of our Durham franchises or organizations that talks about and encourages people to learn about Durham, come to Durham, and all of that kind of way. It's called Discover Durham. And one of the young ladies was from Ecuador, and she moved here. I want to say from Florida, but don't quote me on that and everything like that. But most of her family is still in Ecuador, and she's got a few friends that are Latin American, but she has gotten engaged and everything. And when I asked her how she got engaged, she told me that she had gotten engaged on one of the dating apps and everything like that. So she met her husband, I think is of German descent, if I remember what she told me, and all along those lines. And she met him on Tinder. And some people say that Tinder is the worst way to go, and all along those lines, because that's definitely one of them swipe left ones, and all along those lines. And I've also had some friends, and I've even played around with Facebook dating and things like that. And I know some people that have definitely been on some of the other apps. I want to say that my brother met one of his lady loves off of eHarmony and everything like that. So I've heard good things, including how they do the analysis, because at one of my jobs, which I'm still with, Measurement is a testing company, but one of the guys had actually done some of the analytical work determining how they build the profiles, if I remember correctly, Brian's job and all along those lines. But he was definitely in that field, having worked for, I don't think it was, I think it was eHarmony that he worked for, but he definitely talked about that even sometimes when we were at the physical job, because right now most of us are working remotely and everything like that. But Nancy, and please tell me how to pronounce the last name. I know it sounds like it might be a German last name or something like that, or maybe Italian, but
It's
definitely
actually Norwegian.
Norwegian.
It's pronounced Gulbrandsen.
Gulbrandsen. Okay, so Nancy Gulbrandsen, and I know you've written this book, and a lot of people are fascinated by this notion of swiping left. We've got into this whole world of dating apps, and everybody's trying to find their romantic partner, whether they've been involved in the past. Like I said, I know that some people have been divorced. Like I said, I met this young lady, and she, I think, has never been married, and I don't think her significant other has either. They're looking at doing, I think, a backyard wedding, so they might be trying to wait till the weather gets warmer, and maybe even they think they want to do it in a house that they own. So they might be another year or two away from actually getting married, but it does sound like they are at least moving in that direction. And like I said, when she told me Tinder, I remember some people having horror stories about Tinder as well as some of the other apps. But I guess you can find love in just about any place. So tell me about this book of yours and how it came about.
Well, Swipe Left began as a poem.
Okay.
After being on and off the dating apps for years and meeting someone on Tinder that did not end well. This is a very toxic person. And when that relationship ended, I sat back and I took stock of my experience on the apps, and I started writing a humorous poem. And the poem started out with all kinds of ambitious ideas and I was encouraged and all optimistic about what I might find online. And as the poem progresses, and each stanza discusses another layer of my experiences on the dating apps. The last stanza basically says, "Save your money, time, and energy. Swipe left and adopt a cat or a dog."
So
unlike your niece or the girl you were just talking about, not, well, I would say about maybe 12% of people that meet online actually get married. So the statistics are from the get-go not in your favor. And so that 88% of those other people are very frustrated. They're having some traumatic experiences online with some people that just are toxic. And my goal in writing this book is to give women all the tools they need to recognize the red flags from the profile. What they say, what they don't say, their photos, what their photos show and tell, or don't show and don't tell. So I'm just trying to entertain, because it is a satirical book. and I come from a place of humor. So my goal is to entertain, to educate, and lastly, empower women to make better choices so that they're not wasting time with breadcrumbing Brad or catfish Carl or narcissist Nick.
Yep, and there's a lot of those type of people that are there in those kind of environments, so I can definitely understand that and understand where people would be thinking that that is not where they want to go and all along those lines. Why do you think it is that there are so many unsuccessful relationships through the apps and everything like that? Because I mean, the apps claim that they are there to help build relationships, and I can tell you, it's not just a women's issue because I know that myself have been on those apps, and I know for a fact that I have been. Believe the term is catfish a couple of times, and all along those lines, where they have got me and talked to me, and then after a brief conversation, then it was like, "Can you send me dollars to build this business or help this relative or do this or that?" And they were from various foreign countries, including some that were from here as well. And so I've heard everything from send me money to help me build a business, to send me money to buy basic necessities, to send me money to help get a gift for the family, or even to help with disease and stuff like that. So I've heard all of those and all in that space. But I just wanted your take on why there are so many catfishes out there and how this has gone into almost like a cottage industry.
Well, the whole romance scam situation is, in the billions of dollars at this point. So it's working. The stories that you just mentioned, where women were asking for various amounts of money, women find themselves in a situation where they're trusting, they're believing these men that are kind and loving and affectionate. And when you're lonely, maybe you're recently divorced, maybe you've lost your husband, maybe you're alone and you're aging, you're vulnerable, you want a partner. And these scammers know how to trigger that emotion in you. And that's how they suck you in. It's frightening. I mean, that's just one aspect of the bad guys online. Then you've got men that are just toxic. They may be unemotionally available. They're angry from their marriage, their divorce. They're blaming the wife and her attorney. They feel they've been maligned. They're not taking responsibility, and they're going on to these apps with an attitude and calling their ex crazy. And in reality, until you're really healed from the end of a relationship, it's not fair to go out there, put yourself out there, and lure in people that are looking for the real deal, someone that's genuine and kind and loving and emotionally available and not full of anger and sadness
No,
from that they haven't healed from the last relationship or the marriage.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people haven't healed from
Yeah.
those relationships that they've been in and all along those lines. And it can be quite scary in that sense and everything. I've also seen that it can be, we actually got a show here on the network that's about bullying. So I know some people will use it as a bullying tactic. And I know that some people will even get caught up in a notion of, feeling maybe a little bit overly comfortable in relationships, because I know both women and men have been caught in the sexting trap as well and everything like that. So I just wondering how that plays into what goes on, because I do know that that's something that can even impact you, because a lot of times you think that you're doing things in private and it can even impact your employment and other things as well. So I just wondering your take on some of this, because I do know that that's an issue as well. And then I'd love to hear about some of these various bad dating profiles that you put out here in the book and all along those lines. But definitely, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I know some people get too caught up in the sexing aspects of stuff as well.
It seems that, from my experience and a lot of women I've spoken to and all the other pages that I'm on, and I'm talking and listening and reading, that it's so common for when a guy and a girl match on a dating app, and then they may still be on the app having their messaging, or they may take it off to maybe a cell phone. It's remarkable how quickly a simple text message can turn into something sexual. And it's coming from the man, whether it's a good morning, beautiful, I've got something for you. And then he presents, I call those guys Dick Pic Rick. They're in my book. Unsolicited sexual overtures and actions. Who asked for that? Nobody wants to see that in their inbox at 7 o'clock in the morning. Things go from, hello, how are you? You look beautiful. Show me the rest of your body, to what I just said, unrequested sexual content. And that's against the law. So, I mean, if a woman gets something like that, she should immediately block and report, because that is, that's illegal.
Yeah, I thought that was illegal and everything, but I know people that got caught up in that.
Okay. But it is so rampant, and a lot of women just don't know what to do about it. It's something that, they don't think about it. The guys aren't thinking about it. They're just oversharing. And that happened to me so many times. It's like, right. I didn't ask for that. Well, yeah, what made you think that was going to be something that I was anxiously sitting here waiting for? You don't even know me.
Right, they haven't gotten to know you yet, and a lot of times they don't even get to know the personality and everything like that. I know that there's another show that we have on the network called Relationship Soup that my friend Lisa does, and I know that she had a gentleman on that did an assessment, and I know that some of the apps will have assessments, but some of the assessments can add to the problem or they can hurt the problem depending on how deep the assessments are. But I just wanted your take on assessments, because she had a gentleman that had created, I think it was and I haven't seen the assessment, so I'm not sure what the questions were, but it sounds like it was an 8-word assessment and all along those lines. But I was just wondering your take on this whole notion of assessments as part of the dating apps.
Well, years ago, I tried eHarmony, and they do a really deep assessment.
Right.
Very time consuming. And I was very, very thorough, and I completed it, and I was amazed at what showed up in my box. They've sent me anybody and everybody they had. It really didn't matter. It was just there. I think they tried, but I think they were drawing from a certain pool in my area, and there's only so many people in my area. So at the end of the day, when I said no, 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 then all the others bubbled up from the bottom, that there's no way that I would have been interested in them. So I think that it's nice when they do that, but it depends on the quantity and quality of people on the app. It's going to depend on what you get. So yeah, it may work for some people, but I certainly, it's a great thing to have, but I don't know that it's like the solution. I think people are either attracted to other people or they're not, know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was just wondering, because one of the things I've heard is go back to the old ways of doing things, where people would sometimes meet because of common interests. Like if they were theater people, they might meet in a drama club or on a production or something like that. Or if they were church people and very much involved in their church, there's this whole notion of people meeting in the church environment or in book clubs or different other things where people are being commonly matched and everything like that. But I'm just wondering, in your own situation and your own semi-research and everything, what have you found works? Because I do sometimes find that sometimes that can work, but sometimes it can also have its own toxicity, because sometimes people aren't always encouraging as much as they should relationships, even though I know there are single groups in churches and there are single groups in organizations as well. But I'm just wondering, should we just stay away from the dating apps and try to go the old-fashioned way of like maybe going to we have Duke Gardens here on one of my other shows? This is actually what's in the background and everything like that. And maybe you just going to a walk to Duke Gardens or going to hear a play or going to a musical concert together. But I just wanted your take on this whole notion of maybe people moving away from the apps.
I think that is definitely happening, but there are over 300 million people in the world right now on dating apps. And there's only so many people that are going to try to meet organically.
Right.
When you have, I'm in Central Florida, when you have the entire, Tri-County area at your disposal online, I just think a lot of people just rather sit at home and swipe, call it doom scrolling, just to see what kind of attention they can get. I think there's some of that going on. But yes, join a club, whatever your hobby is. If you belong to a gym or a church group, or you have any other sort of interest, get out there and find a group. You may very well hit the jackpot, but you may meet somebody through somebody in that group. Hey,
Right.
I had, you know what? My cousin, like, wow, you guys really seem like you might click. So you never know. So the solution is, I think it's multifaceted. I think try the apps, but swipe smart, be savvy, understand the red flags, have that toolbox, and then get out and enjoy your area and see what you can find there. Bars, that's how people have met for years. I think we can be a little more original than that,
Yeah,
than going back to that, right?
then going back to the bars and the nightclubs and all of that kind of stuff that I remember from
Happy hours, right?
the happy hours from my college days and even after college in the 20s
Right.
and 30s.
Fridays, TGI Fridays, right? That was always the place to go.
Yeah, it was a place to go. And the other thing that people used to like was there was the whole notion, because I was talking to a good friend of mine and we remembered one that was very popular that people used to love, the happy hours, where you would sometimes meet the people, but you want to maybe get some music, but you'd also get some, in many cases, free food and free appetizers that went with the happy hour and all on those lines. And I don't know how many hotels and restaurants are even continuing that happy hour tradition, but I do remember that was something that people talked about doing on a regular basis, and I haven't seen that in a while either. So it'll be interesting to see if those come back or if they are even as popular as they used to be in that sense. So I don't know what you found in that sense. But I did have a question, because I know that sometimes when I've been on Facebook, dating is out there, there's Tinder out there as well. And I do sometimes think that people, and I know I can be guilty of it as well, have this notion of maybe boosting the ego and even helping with people and everything. Because I think that a lot of times people are swiping left or swiping whichever direction is the right direction, because they are finding the person cosmetically attractive. So not necessarily looking at the deeper personality, because I don't know that you can really get that much of the deeper personality, even if they put on the profiles. And I've seen women put on their profiles, if you are going to talk sex, or if you're going to talk politics, if you're going to talk religion, if those are their kind of like there's a name for it. It's not drop dead, but it's kind of like their deal breakers. If those are their deal breakers, then they will put that on their profile. But I do know that swiping, because the first thing you see is the picture, and the picture is what you're kind of judging on and everything. Because I don't know that how many people really read the profiles. I know that I'm an avid reader, so I do read the profile, so I know what they say. So if they say that, if you want sex, don't go bothering to talk to me, then you know that that's not something that they're interested in. Or if they say that they are there's a term for it. Basically means that they like intellectual people and everything like that. And I'm trying to remember.
Sapiosexual.
Right.
Yes.
If they put that, says they're sapiosexual, then you know that they're very much into the intellect. So I have seen people that have very much been specific as to what they want, but I've also seen people that are very generic in their profile. So how much should people be more specific in what they're putting in their profiles? And do you think that I'm correct that a lot of both men and women are just swiping in the direction of yes or no based on their initial look at the picture and the profile?
Well, from a woman's standpoint, because
Right.
I've been looking at men's dating profiles, I found some men do a great profile and they put a lot of effort into what they say and their photos. And I mean, women do look at that. We look at the photo, but we also want to read a little bit more about them. A man that puts forth the least amount of effort, one or two photos that were just maybe on his phone and he just plopped them right up there, or in the body of the profile, just ask, or, I'll tell you when we meet. I mean, that's just that's a minimum effort, Mike. Okay.
Right.
Why would you want to waste your time on someone who didn't have the sense of mind to put forth any effort whatsoever in his profile? So that's a definite swipe left. From a man's standpoint, I know that a lot of men are really, really tired of the filters and that women use, because the person that they see in the pictures that have been filtered or touched up is probably not the person that's going to show up. Well, it's the same person, but it's not going to look like the same person. It might be, someone a little older, maybe just, their picture has been really enhanced. And I know that that's a problem for men. But women, I think we do fill out our profiles, but I don't really think men read the profile as much as they look at the photo, and it's either a swipe right, yes, or a swipe left, no. So I think women put forth more effort in photos and profile. Some men do. We read all that stuff.
Right. No, and I definitely can see that and everything, because I know the other thing that goes on sometimes, and you kind of alluded to it, and I know it happens both with men and women, is that, I mean, everybody wants to put forth their best foot forward. And I know that people have got on my case because one of my pictures is from a few years back, and I might have been in a suit and everything. I don't think that it's changed that much. The beard might have gotten a little bit thicker and definitely a little bit grayer and everything. So some women have called me out on that, and I probably need to add a more updated picture and everything like that. So I can understand that, but I also know that I've been, and ironically, as a friend of the victim of the opposite of that. And I say that because they were a college roommate, and we did go on a few dates and were there for a minute. Some people might have even thought we were an item in some ways or another, but they put their picture in, and it was pretty close to our college picture. So it was from like several years back and everything like that. So it might not have been that far back, but it was definitely 20, 30 years. So I know when I met them, to your point, they were not, I mean, I'm not as light as I was in college, but I don't know that I was expecting, if I'm going to put it in dress size, in 18 or 20 when I had remembered them as being at 8, and that's kind of what their picture showed and everything like that. So I just wondering how much of this fake profile is out there, both on the men and the women's side.
Oh, it's very common. And I think that if people would just use current pictures, think about it. We all have cameras at our disposal. We carry one around with us all day, every day. Ask your friend to take a picture, put the fish down. We don't want to see you holding the dead fish. We don't want to see the gym rat Jake with the biceps and the arm veins. We just want to see the person. We want to see you nicely dressed. You don't have to go, get crazy, but we want to see recent pictures, and we want to see some effort put forth there. And in the profile, you don't have to go crazy on the profile. Just give us enough to make us interested. There's got to be something to talk about if you meet or have a phone conversation.
You mentioned heaven, and like I said, I don't have any. I've got my nephews that are 16 and 17, respectively, getting ready to go off to the college world and everything like that. But Rick Rosner, who used to work with Jimmy Kimmel and is on our network regularly and everything, had brought up this notion that our young people, as he puts it, aren't getting as hooked up as much as they did when we were kids and everything. And I'm in my 60s. I don't know about your age and everything, but I was just wondering how much of the app world are the young people using? Because you have a son. I'm imagining the son is either in his 20s or 30s, maybe 40s, but everything like that. But I was just wondering how much are the young people using the apps, or is it something that is more common in people that are in their middle ages? Because like I said, Rick has brought up on several of our shows, including our news show and his show that he does, it's like a political show, a political point counterpoint type show, that he feels that a lot of people are just attached to their computers and aren't really doing the actual connecting and everything like that. So I just wanted your observation of both your son and your son's peers.
Well, I know they've all been on the apps. My one son has met girls on and dated girls from, I'm not sure what app. I know a lot of the kids today use Hinge. I don't know, never been on that one. My older son was on the apps for a while, but he's dating someone that he's known since second grade. They connected after college. So that's organic, right? Um, as far as the sex goes, I just think that that's always going to be a thing. And if both the man and the woman are on the apps for that, that's fine. But if you're looking for something serious and the guy is just stringing you along to get, with that in mind, that's, that's not exactly a great situation. But there's a lot of that out there.
No, there's a lot of that, and there are also apps that are very specific toward specific lifestyles or wanting specific lifestyles. So I don't know if you've been on them, and I haven't been on them in a while and everything, but I remember, and ironically, some of the people that were on there weren't even in the class that they were talking about. But I remember there was a time, and I guess it's still out there. I haven't looked to see if it still exists, but there was those people that wanted to be part of the 1%. So they joined the app called millionairematch.com. And I know that there are other people that are wanting to have multiple partners. So they'll join something like AFF or something like that has various dating aspects to it as well and everything like that. So I just wonder, is that part of the problem? There are too many dating apps that some of them are even specific to groups. I remember, and this was a while back, I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this, that there were apps even for different ethnicities. Like I know that it was a time because I have primarily African-American descent, even though I'm very light complected and everything like that. But there was an app called Black Singles, and there was a lot of people that were in that space. And I think Hispanic and all along those lines. So the people sometimes get, I imagine there might even be one for the furries and everything like that. So the people get caught up in apps that in the dating world that are specifically geared toward, I hate to put it this way because it sounds like you're going fishing, but in some way, I guess you are their target market.
Well, it's great that those apps exist, because if you're on an app where you're looking for something out of the ordinary, you're going to be with other people who are in the same mindset.
Right.
So those are great, whether, it's a Christian Mingle or Jade Date, or those are great because everyone's looking for the same thing, right? And that narrows, the playing field in a big way. And if you're on one of the other sites that you mentioned, people that are out there looking for multiple partners or just to have fun, then you're among those people, and everyone's on the same page, and that's fine. But if you're on Tinder or Match or any of the others, and you're looking for a real partner, a long-term monogamous relationship, I think you want to make sure that you're swiping on people that are also on that same page.
No, that makes sense. How many people, and like I said, I'm 63 and I haven't been encouraged to go on those apps, but I know friends that have been encouraged to go on those apps and everything like that. But how many people do you think are encouraged to go on things based on their age range and everything like that? Because I know that there have been a couple of apps in the dating space that are age related as well. I even see some of them advertised on my TV and all along those lines, where they'll be trying to get you to date somebody 50 and over, 50 plus or 60 plus or whatever they may be in that space.
Yeah, I'm sure that those exist, and that's probably great for the people that are on there, because younger guys some guys like older women, and some women like younger men. So if you're on those pages, that's what you're going to find, and that's perfect. But even on those, be safe.
No, you
Be
definitely
educated, be empowered, so that you're not getting scammed or worse.
No, that makes a lot of sense and everything like that. We got another guest that'll be joining us very shortly, because they've actually done a lot of work in the world of television. Actually, there's a TV show that I like. You may like it as well, Nancy, that they're actually created the whole series, the Devious series based on. I'm going to bring them up very shortly, and I definitely will have some interaction conversation. And when you got to bounce off, that's cool as well. But I just wanted, could you tell us a little bit before I bring you on, Kathy, and everything, the nature of what some of these dating profiles are that you are encouraging people to stay away from? You've kind of mentioned a couple of them, like I forgot all of them that you've mentioned and everything, but there are different profiles, and you've alluded to a couple of them. But what are some of these profiles that women need to be cautious about and everything like that?
Well, my book is broken down into chapters, and each chapter covers a certain type of profile. So I've got the financial follies, where you've got the men that are, you pay your way, honey, or we've got the breadcrumbing Brad, where Brad is a nice guy and Brad likes you, and then you feel a connection, and then Brad goes away, and then a month later there's Brad again. These men are unemotionally available. They're just there when it suits them. Why would a woman want to put time, energy, and emotion into something where there's really nothing there for her? I have a chapter on toxic masculinity, where we discussed the narcissistic personality, the anger, all kinds of things that you don't really know about someone until you might be in too deep. So I discuss with humor, even though these are not fun topics, I do my best to address these serious situations with humor and wit to make my point. I've got chapters full of ghosting Gus, gaslighting Gary, the obsessive guy, the par for the course Paul, who plays golf all day, every day, obsessive things, and men that are really not available. They want you in their life, but they've got a lot of other things that are always going to draw their attention. We've got, the boozy Bruce, alcohol is his best friend. It always has been, and it always will be. How much of an intimate relationship can you form with someone who has a substance abuse problem? There's nothing there for a woman in going into a relationship with a man like that. Narcissism. Okay, we've got the love bombing guy that comes on strong and tells you everything you want to hear, and it goes downhill from there. So I bring all of these personalities to life so that women will recognize the personality characteristics, the red flags, and before they get too attached, they're empowered to say, this is not going to go anywhere for me. I'm not moving forward with this.
No, that makes sense. And I'm going to bring in Kathy and all along those lines so she can join our conversation as well. And like I said, she's the founder of the Temperance series. And that Temperance series was actually the series that Bones, which is a TV show that I love, is based on. And that actually played a lot in the relationship conversation as well. Because one of the things I remember about the TV series Bones was the whole notion of will they or won't they, which is the police officer as well as the character that was Bones, who is the forensic anthropologist. I think that was probably part of the stories, even though I never read the book, but I did get very caught up in the storyline of the movie. And part of that was this notion, because I think some of the characters that were in there in that particular TV show, and both of you can answer this, were what we would call people pleasers, and all along those lines, because I do think that there was some people pleasing going on in some of the characters in Bones and everything like that. So Kathy, I just wondered if you might want to just share a little bit about your series, because I've been a fan of Bones ever since it started airing on one of our cable channels, and I do sometimes watch it, sometimes maybe too. I might stay up till like when they're doing those whole series of continual episodes back to back to back. I might watch 7 or 8 of them way into the wee hours of the morning and everything like that. So I am one of those fans.
Well, the TV series is based on my series of books. There are 24 of them, all featuring Temperance Brennan. She's a forensic, they say write about what you know about. Right. So I'm a forensic anthropologist, and I have done all of the work for North Carolina and also the province of Quebec in Canada for longer than I'm going to admit to. So, I've commuted between those two areas, which are very different in many, many ways. And so that's what I have my character doing. She goes back and forth between the Carolinas and Quebec, and she works on cases that can't present for normal autopsy, because the body is compromised. It's burned or mutilated or mummified or decomposed, or maybe it's just bones.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Would you agree with me? Because relationships played a big part in the book and everything like that, just like they did in the relationship between Bones and the good police officer that was her partner and everything. And I also remember I want to say she was Asian, uh, person that was on the show as well, and her partner that was kind of the goofy gentleman and everything. So I was just wondering.
Oh, you mean the part TJ Tyne played, the Hodgins. Hodgins
Yes,
was our bug and slime guy. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's
And
what I was
he
saying.
ends up with Angela, who was the forensic artist.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about, those two and everything like that. But I was just wondering your take on how much it is this whole notion of people pleasing, because I think it's real. And I definitely think that the TV show and the books kind of touch on that. And I'd love to hear Nancy's part, even with the dating profiles. But I was just wondering, how much do we get caught up too much in people pleasing?
Well, I don't think you could call the character that. I think of book Tempe and TV Tempe. So
Right.
I don't think you could call the TV Tempe a people pleaser by any stretch of the imagination. She's very socially awkward,
Mhm.
and she's not intentionally prickly, but she can be quite difficult to deal with. More so in the early seasons. We went 12 years. And so in the later seasons of the show, she softens a bit, let's say, and she develops more of a sense of humor than she
Right.
had in the earlier seasons. And she's a little different than the Temperance Brennan in my books. She's younger, and she's certainly more socially awkward than the Temperance Brennan in my books.
Yeah, because that's what I'm going to ask you. Because I think that's why, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts. I think that's why some people go to dating apps, because of the feeling of being socially awkward and everything like that. Because I even see that with some of my friends and some of my peers and everything like in that space. So why do you think that? Why did you make her a socially awkward character in your book, Kathy? And then I'd love to hear how it plays out in the dating. Nancy.
She's not that socially awkward in the book. That was part of the idea of Hart Hanson and Barry Josephson, who were the executive producers on the Fox series Bones. And when they wrote the character for Bones for TV Tempe, not book Tempe, they did make her awkward. And
Right.
I guess they just thought that would lend itself to a lot of interesting social situations, because the main theme of the show is you've got a crime, you've got a murder. It always starts out with a body in not such good shape and leads into a crime. But there's always a B story, as we would call it. Your A story would be the crime. Your B story would be something going on in the lives of the characters. So I think their idea was that it would make it more interesting if she was smooth and got along with everyone, and that's not nearly as interesting as someone who has social difficulty, I think, and awkwardness.
Yeah. What's your take on awkwardness and just in general? Because I'm thinking that's why a lot of people, Nancy, get involved in these apps and everything, because they're feeling socially awkward, which is why they join a Tinder or a Hitch and all along those lines. So what's your take on just the notion of social awkwardness? Because I do think that it's something that is more prominent than we would like to admit.
Yeah, when you're building your profile, I mean, you can present however you want to present. So if you're very antisocial, or and you can present that to be something that you're not. So maybe you want to look like you're more outgoing, or you have a bigger, better, more active life than you really do. You can only pretend for so long, though. I mean, you can put anything you want in a dating profile, whether it's a photo or the way you build your profile, but it's not going to take long for the person you meet or chat with to figure out that the pieces aren't connecting there.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely have that situation and all along those lines. Just out of curiosity, Kathy, because I can't remember an episode that maybe there was, because I think one of them episodes they were getting on a dating app, but I don't remember which episode that was and everything like that. But how do you think, if she was the book character or the TV character, she would do on a social app, or would she just like not even deal with it? Because she does have a very, in some cases in the early season, prickly personality and everything like that. So would that even be a way that she would go, or was there any books that touched on that?
Totally out of the question for TV Tempe, for sure. She never in a million years would go on a dating app. I don't think book Tempe would do that either. Partly because she's just too damn busy. She's got so much going on in her life that she doesn't have time for a very broad and elaborate social life.
That makes sense and everything. Just out of curiosity, because both of you are from different parts of the country. I know you're living in Florida, but you're originally from New Jersey, Nancy. And I know that you mentioned having some ties to North Carolina. And I'm in Durham, North Carolina. So I was wondering, are there any, I'll start with you, Kathy, are there any North Carolina cases that you were involved with? Because a lot of people, when they think of North Carolina, and I didn't know the perpetrator as well as the victim, they know Staircase. And I knew both the victim as well as the person that was accused of the crime and everything, because she was on the board of the Arts Council when I was working at the Arts Council and everything like that. So I was wondering, did you ever work on any of that Michael Peterson case?
You know what? I did. I was contacted. Something, was there something about an owl?
There was an owl, a bat. They blamed the bat. They claimed that the bat is what knocked her down and that it wasn't.
Okay, well, I think when the defense attorney called me, it was going to be an owl. And would an owl leave any marks on bone that you could prove that it was an owl? And I told him no. And that was the last of my involvement in the case. I don't think I said what they needed to hear. So.
Yeah, probably didn't need to hear what they were trying to do in that case and everything like that. What are some of the cases that you do remember working on and all along those lines? Because you mentioned that you've gone between both North Carolina and Quebec. So what are some of the cases that you have worked on that people may remember in your real life work?
Oh, I don't think anyone would have heard. Canadian news doesn't really percolate down here. Ours certainly percolates up there, but theirs doesn't necessarily. Americans aren't particularly interested, I don't think. But I worked on a serial murder case there, which had some very interesting elements, which was the basis for my very first book, Deja Dead, looking at saw marks in the bone, and can you tie the saw marks in the bone of a dismembered victim to a particular saw that was recovered in a suspect's garage or shed or something. So that was the very first one that I did. I worked on the Casey Anthony case. I guess most people would have heard of that one, but I don't really like to talk about it that much.
Well, that's fair enough and everything like that.
That was a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one. What made you decide to go into this particular field and all along those lines? Because a lot of people, that's not something that they are considering going into when they are thinking of their careers. I know that even on the network, Nick, one of our founders, sometimes teases people about jobs that he feels don't have as much real world application. He talks about people like anthropologists and others, and there's not as much real world application. Of course, he's a lawyer, and there might be people that don't necessarily think we need more lawyers. So that's just my take and everything. But even though like I said, my nephew's looking at going into the law field. But I was just wondering, what drew you into? Were you the child that was out in the back just finding the bones and was curious about it?
Yeah. I was always interested, and I had science kits and chemistry sets, and we set up a whole, science lab in the basement kind of thing. But I get his point, which I just forgot, that, we don't really, no, anyway, ask me another question. I was going to make a point and I totally forgot what it was.
How you got into the field, and I was mentioning that Nick.
Yes, I wrote a short story. He had a book called The Bone Collector, I think, or The Bone Collection or something. And it's Tempe Brennan's origin story, and it's based on my origin story. She's sitting in her office one day, and a cop shows up, who we later come to know and love as Skinny Slidell, I think. And they've found a skeleton in the woods, and they heard that she's the bones lady out at the university. So could she please help them with this set of bones that they think are human bones? So that's how I got into it. Cops actually came to me and asked me for help on a case. I remember that case. It was a child, actually. And once I did that, because my PhD was really in bioarchaeology, looking at ancient bones that had been recovered. But once I did the forensic work, I just liked the relevance of it, the fact that you could make an impact, you could impact someone's life. And your friend is correct. Anthropology is probably not going to impact. It's interesting. It's fascinating. Archaeology, we love it. I love to read about it, but you're not going to change anybody's life with it. Whereas forensic anthropology, you are. Right. When you give an answer to a family about a missing family member, or you identify, or you testify in court about a suspect, you are going to impact lives. And I really like that relevance. And that's why I retrained and sat for boards. Because we testify in court, forensic anthropology is the only field in anthropology that has a set of certification process. And you have to sit for a big, ugly set of exams and become certified. So I did that and switched over and have been doing the forensics ever since.
Well, what advice, because how many books are there in the Brennan series and everything like that in the Temperance?
24, number 24 just came out. It's called Evil Bones. And there's kind of a theme in there. Once Bones went on the air, then my publisher wanted bones in every single title. So
Evil Bones will be out there.
Brandy.
But what advice would you give to Nancy? Because Nancy just started as a poem, and then she wrote her first book. So maybe this book will lead to other books. Maybe there won't be as much of a non-fictional aspect, because like the current book is about the whole dating profile, and it's actually warning women about the various, lack of a better term, and I just call them what they are, predator types that are out there and all along those lines. So what advice would you give to Nancy as a accomplished author?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. You get an agent. Get an agent. I have had publishers, I've heard them say more than once that they won't even look at any work that is not represented by an agent, for what that's worth.
I have a publicist, and she's doing great. But yeah, thank you.
Yes, I probably need that agent to go with the publicist and all along those lines. The publicist is doing
Thank you.
a great job and everything, but get that word out. One of the things we talk about on this show, and I'd love to hear both of y'all's thoughts, because both of you seem like y'all are very strong-willed women, but also very much have a confidence in yourself. And one of the things that I talk about on this show quite a bit in the online dinner party is the what some people call the self-fulfilling prophecy. Some people will call it that whole notion of self-defeating and all along those lines. And there's a number of other words, including the imposter syndrome, that people use and everything like that. So I was just wondering, at what point did you get past that, and how did you get past that? Because that's what I oftentimes ask people, because a lot of folks, whether it's the dating world or the business world, because there have been business jobs where I've had that whole conversation with myself, and by the time I talk myself into either pursuing the lady or pursuing the job is gone, or the lady's engaged or in another relationship or something like that. So I just wondered, how do you get past that imposter syndrome, the two of you? Because both of you ladies seem like you're very confident in your lives and in your attitudes about life. So how did you get past that imposter syndrome? And maybe you can give that advice, not just to me, but others that watch this show.
Who would you like to go first?
When I decided to write fiction, I had written textbooks up to that point, scientific articles, journal articles. I hadn't written fiction. Well, maybe my resume, but other than that, I hadn't really written fiction. So I just decided I was going to do it and finish it. Because I was teaching full time and commuting between Montreal and Charlotte. It took me 2 years. And I'd get up at dawn and write at dawn, or I'd write on weekends and stuff. So I didn't let anyone read it because I was not very confident about it. I didn't know if anyone would ever. My goals were very. I set a low bar for myself. I just hoped it would get published, and I hoped somebody would actually read it and like it. So, and naively, I said you should be represented by an agent. I didn't know that back then. And this was 96. I submitted the first manuscript. So my daughter knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who was working at a publishing house. So I said, well, okay, find out, get a name. And so I just wrote a cover letter and mailed, because you sent the whole big honking manuscript off in those days. And I just mailed it off to Mary Sue Rucci. And I'm sure she was on the other end of this, hearing that her friend's mother's first novel is coming her way.
And she's clapping, going, "Oh, I can hardly wait."
Told me later that she took 2 or 3 chapters from her office in Manhattan home to, I don't know, Brooklyn or wherever she was living, thinking already, I'm sure, composing her reject letter. Thank you so much, but you don't fit into blah, blah, blah. She said she went back into the city, got the rest of it, took it back home, read it over the weekend, handed it up to the lady that did become my editor, Suzanne Kirk, and I think I had an offer within 2 weeks. But that is not the way to get published. I don't think that would ever happen today.
Well, speaking of getting published, how did you go from making that book? Because a lot of people have this notion that we all, and I definitely want to hear from you as well, Nancy, about the imposter syndrome. But a lot of people think that we all have a book in us and that that book can make a great movie and everything like that. But how many people are actually going to have the Harry Met Sally kind of books or the kind of TV series that you became and got? So how did it go from becoming a book that bones the TV series, and how much involvement did you have in that process? Did somebody just like pitch it to the TV station and they, or the TV network, and they were good with it and they wanted to make it into this successful TV franchise, or was there a lot of back and forth? So how did this whole process come about?
My agent who approached me, I didn't have an agent, as I said, I just mailed the thing into the publisher. But as soon as I got the offer, she flew down from New York to Charlotte and met with me and became my agent for the next 25 years. She was with a small agency, but it became incorporated into William Morris. So William Morris Endeavor. So William Morris Endeavor has a person that does nothing but books to film or TV. So Lauren Whitney represented my book, and she sold it to Fox, and and then it became Bones.
Became Bones, the TV series. Now, you said there was a difference between the TV series and the book and everything along those lines. What would you have done differently if you were the TV producer versus what we've seen? Like I said, there are people that are fans like me about the relationships, but what would you have changed about the bringing the book to the TV that they didn't do?
You know, I don't think I'd change anything because we're the longest running scripted drama in the history of Fox. So whatever they did with it, and they did make changes, and I knew they would make changes. I knew they would make the character younger, of course. Whatever they did really worked. And we, as I said, we're the longest running drama in the history of the Fox network. So I think what I did back then, I realized I knew nothing about TV production. So I just relied on their better understanding of the industry, and I just basically went with what they thought would work within limits, what they thought would work best.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Were you a Bones fan, Nancy? And also, I did want to hear your thoughts about.
Don't put her on the spot.
Well, I will tell you, at the time that was on, I owned a bakery, and I was beyond busy. And one of the girls that worked for me talked about it all the time. And I'm like, I had kids, younger kids, and I worked all day. I came home, I started to 0 dark 30, and then I came home and did the mom thing, and then did it all, every day for, every 5 days a week. So at night, there wasn't a whole lot of television in my life. So no, but I've heard wonderful things about it.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the bakery and all along those lines, and that comes back to the self-fulfilling prophecy. And that way, I've got several friends that are in the restaurant business, including our current mayor here in Durham, North Carolina, that owns a Zimbabwean restaurant with his wife, who is from Zimbabwe, and everything like that. And I think they may they owned a couple of restaurants. I don't know how many they've got right now and everything. But most of my friends tell me that's the last thing you want to get into, because the chances of succeeding in bakeries or restaurants is like dim to none. So what made you decide to jump out into that field? Because I would come back to that confidence level and everything. Were you just like that great cook that you're like, I got to have my bakery? Or what pushed you into that?
It was a gourmet cookie bakery, and I had a great time doing it. We did work for Disney and Universal and SeaWorld, and we did corporate logo cookies, and we did wedding cookies. We did all kinds of stuff. It wasn't really a customer, like it was business to business mostly. We didn't have business hours where people walked into the bakery to buy things. We shipped nationwide, and we did a lot of local things here in Orlando. So, but still, same difference. It was very long days and a lot of work. I used to say, I never worked so long and so hard and made so little. So there you go.
I can relate to that.
And right now at Christmas, we would be flat out 18-hour days, making thousands of cookies every day. So the holidays were challenging because I was so busy.
Do you still eat cookies?
I still love cookies, and I bake. I have a cookie party. I do Christmas cookie parties, and yes, I love it. But now I do it for fun.
Now you do it for fun, and I can relate to that. Actually, my mom on the same day that we were having our open house, which was yesterday, was being filmed because they're doing some filmmakers are doing a film about a family friend of ours. It's a friend of mine as well, but she's part of our quilt circle. So Jerry Ann King is a quilter and all along those lines. So I think part of the film is about her quilting, but she also worked at my parents' radio station because my parents started a radio station in 1976 that lasted about roughly 10 years because I know it was still on a year or two after I graduated from college in 84, but I know it started in 76, so that was the independence year and all along those lines. It might have been 77, but I'm pretty sure it was 76. But they kept that. To y'all's point, I can remember one of the big jokes that I would have with Mom, and they were filming Jerry at her house because Jerry was part of this same radio station that was our family radio station because Mom, Dad, and several family friends, including Jerry Ann King, were involved in that, and Walter North that. But I remember Mom would come and pick me up from the old airport. You're from Charlotte, Kathy, so you know that the old airport in Raleigh-Durham was not that big of an airport back in the day. It's an international airport now, but back in the day, it was a very small airport. So she would pick me up, and from Raleigh to Warrenton, it's probably about an hour and 15 minutes. And I remember her asking me when I was coming home, so what are you doing? And like, I'm a young teenager at the time. I'm going like, Mom, I have no idea. We didn't have like the cell phones that my nephews and your kids have now and everything. So I'm going like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then that's what she would do, what you women are very good at doing. She would give me the guilt trip and everything. She'd be like, well, I was at the radio station at 6 o'clock. I stayed at the radio station until 4 o'clock. I came to pick you up at 5 o'clock. I'm supposed to be back at the radio station at 6 o'clock. I got an idea. How about I drop you off at the radio station? You stay on the air until about 8 or 9 o'clock, and then you come home. And so she would do that whole mom thing. So that's how I got into the radio, and from radio, it's led to TV and podcasts. And so I can't totally blame her because both Mom and Dad are how I got into this whole field, even though I knew I was going to go into journalism because that's what I majored in. But yeah, I always tease Mom about that because I'm going like, yeah, you just kind of like dropped me off at the radio station because you had worked for 12 hours or 15 hours. So she was tired of it as well. So then she would be able to relate to you and everything like that. She actually praised, and I got to give them credit, the filmmakers that came to her house. She said that they did a great job. They praised me for some of the work I do at the culture center that I work at and everything. But they also, some people come into your house, and both of you know this because you're business women, and they will do whatever they're doing, like it's whether it's an interview or whatever, and then they'll leave. But they actually stayed in the house, straightened up the house. So they set it up as a studio, made it look like a nice studio, but they vacuumed and did the whole 9 yards. So they were very good producers in that sense. So when I talked to Mom yesterday, she was quite pleased with them because they didn't like just kind of do a hit and run. They actually did what they're supposed to do and helped her clean up. So too often that doesn't happen. But I was glad to hear Mom's report that they had done a good job and she was pleased with them. So I've actually talked to her today and yesterday and everything, because the interview was yesterday, the same day as our open house and all along those lines. But I'm just wondering, because coming back to the conversation and all along those lines, I don't think that we ever heard how you dealt with the imposter syndrome. And I kind of alluded to it earlier, Nancy. So how did you deal with it? Were you automatically thinking that you would be successful with this book? It's your first book and along those lines? Or did you, you mentioned your son was helping you earlier to set up your computer and everything. Yes. Is he the one that encouraged you to write this book after having seen his mom on these dating profiles and hearing your war stories, or maybe your sons, because you said you got multiple sons, or maybe it was
they had a front row seat to it all. Well, I couldn't have written this book 5 years ago because I feel that I had to experience all that I experienced to emotionally be prepared to do this. As I said, it started with a humorous poem I wrote just for the fun of it that turned into a chapter book. The last relationship that I mentioned ended with an extraordinarily toxic man that probably could have been in one of the Bones episodes if I had stuck around long enough. This is a diabolically toxic man. And I escaped traumatized, and he was your textbook narcissist, but not heartbroken. So thank God for that. But it allowed me the time to reflect on my online dating history. And it was very therapeutic, and it was very real. And I had a long, hard talk with myself because I had some great times and I did meet some really nice guys. They weren't all jerks. But I felt that I needed to write this book if I could just prevent one woman from spending a week, a month, a year, a decade with the wrong guy, whether he's Boozy Bruce or a narcissist Nick. Know your red flags. Understand the personality characteristics. I have a chapter on attachment styles. I have a chapter on the toxic masculinity. I cover everything, but I could never have done that until this last relationship ended. And it was 2 years. And with the textbook narcissists, from the love bombing to the devaluing to the discarding to the hoovering. And it was frightening sometimes what I experienced. So I wrote this from the heart in order to entertain, because it's humorous, educate, and empower women. I think I've seen a lot of interviews with all kinds of celebrities, and everybody talks about the imposter syndrome. And it blows me away that somebody, tremendously famous, like I think Barbara Streisand, still gets terrible stage fright. So it's just amazing that we all carry that. But I have a story to tell, and this is not easy, putting myself out there. It's a big step. I'm a very private person. I, love my privacy, but I'm not going to be able to accomplish my goal of empowering women if I keep this to myself. So if I can just save one woman from going through some of the things that I experienced, I will have accomplished my goal.
No, that makes a lot of sense and everything. Hey, Kathy, along those same lines, because you've been in this field for a long time with the whole notion of being a forensic anthropologist and everything like that, I can only imagine the ways of how it's impacted your own life, because what you are seeing is the worst of mankind. Because some of these crimes that they are doing they're not just your run-of-the-mill murder, which is bad enough, but these are people that are basically done very much savagery, if I can just put it that way, and everything along those lines. So I was just wondering, how has that even impacted your own life? Because I'm just imagining what it would do. Because I've even seen some of those Bones episodes, some of those, I'm not going to lie, I turned away on a couple of the scenes when they were in those deep bone scenes, even though I liked the series and I did like the characters and everything like that. But some of those scenes were a little gruesome. So I can only imagine what it's like if you're actually in the field.
Yeah, and it's not all vicious murderers. That's a small percentage of the cases I would work on. Bodies that turn up for whatever, an elderly person wanders off from a nursing home and dies in the woods. Okay, 2 years later, the skeleton is found. Or, someone falls out of a boat and a year later, a body washes ashore from the river. So it's not always criminal, and it's not always, homicide. Right. That I work on. So you see both sides of it, because you see also the people that are working so hard to get these deceased back to their families and to get proper treatment for the remains. The people working in the medical legal context, my colleagues in the crime lab. You also see the families, and the families are so incredibly grateful for, the news you're delivering to them. Might not be good news, but it's better knowing than not knowing. So, the families are also, that's the feedback, that's the positive feedback that you get that makes it worth it.
No, I understand that, because earlier today we were doing our news segment, which we do every morning at 10 o'clock, and there was a case, I think it was overseas, but I forget where, but it was a boat that's been capsized. I want to say it was somewhere in Europe for like 10 years, and they're just now trying to get out there and still find that bodies and the victims and everything like that. But I know that in some cases there are situations where their bodies aren't even found for not just a year or two, but like a decade or so, and they are still doing those searches trying to find those people. But I can definitely relate, because one of my uncles, he since passed, but there's a famous case, the case when I talk about it, because it's North Carolina based, but his niece, and it was on his side of the family, not mine, was Faith Hespress. And, she was the young lady that was murdered at the UNC and everything like that when she was like a sophomore or a junior. And they're just now getting to the case part of finding out who they believe did the crime and to put them on trial and everything like that. So they may be calling somebody like you at some point or another to make the case stick or all along those lines. Because I know that there was some DNA and other things involved with that case from what I remember and everything like that. So definitely, I know a lot of people follow that Faith Hedgefest case. And like I said, that was because she came to Mom's house as well for some family outings. And I do remember that, to your point, the family is glad that there is starting to be some, at least, I won't say just justice, but also relief in knowing the outcome, knowing how it happened and not just having to wonder. Because a lot of times people are in that wonderment stage of what happened and why did it happen and who did it and all. So the mystery being solved will be a great thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what goes on in that particular case. But yeah, it's just I know a lot of people are. So would you say that it's about maybe 10% of the cases that are actual cases of what people would consider the more gruesome things that we saw on Bones, the TV series, and the other 80 or 90% are like the more mundane kind of situations? Or what would you put the percentage at as to what your work is like on a daily basis?
It would be hard. I couldn't really assign numbers to it. It would be hard. So
no, I understand.
But yeah.
And you're right. A lot of times people don't think about, because I imagine, because I had a friend that was going to one of our local universities, and he passed away because I think he was either asthmatic or something that was going on, but he basically drowned. So I do know that they had to deal with some of his stuff after he had drowned in, I think it was a small river or a small pond, but it wasn't a murder. It was like him going swimming or something like that. And then he passed away after having suffered that situation. I don't think he was epileptic, but it was something that would have caused him to have a type of seizure, is what I'm trying to say. Because I remember friends of ours talking about that when it happened, and that was like almost a decade and a half or maybe almost 20 years ago, now that I think about it, because he was still a student at the time and everything like that. Both of you have kids, and that's where I was going to go and everything like that. How much have the kids been there to encourage you in your work? I know Nancy kind of mentioned it, but I was wondering, I think you said you have a daughter, Kathy. So is it just one child?
I have 2 daughters and a son.
Okay. And how much have they been there to encourage you in this, but not just the work of being an author, but also your work as a forensic anthropologist? And how much do you go, because you have offices both in Quebec, because we do have a member of our team at Pod TV that is a chess master, and I think he's in Calgary, if I remember correctly. But how much do you go back and forth between Canada and North Carolina? So like, are you 50-50 or?
No, I would go up I'm pretty much retired now. I'm available if there should be, a mass disaster or something, but I would go up for 1 week out of every 6, something like that, maybe go up for 10 days. And yeah, because most of the people I would be working on had been dead for a while.
Right.
Certainly if they're skeletal or they're decomposed or mummified, so they could hold those cases for me.
They just hold them until you get up there and everything like that. And I know one of the things that people talk about quite a bit, and it was mentioned a couple of times on Bones as well, is how much of the work of after you've done your work, do you make the Bones available for teaching universities? Because I do know that that's something that has been done in the past and everything like that. So how much of that, I don't want to say cadavers because that sounds like a bad word, but how much of those bones have been turned over to the teachers and everything like that?
That is not my call. That would be the call of the pathologist with the complete agreement of the family, signed documents that the family were behind this totally.
So the family would have to agree before they can just do it on their own.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Now, if you've got remains that have never been identified, that have been sitting in the morgue, and there is no family and there is no name attached to them, that might be a little bit different. And I don't know, I think each jurisdiction would have their own protocol for how long they would keep someone.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if I heard your answer, but how much has your kids helped you in your career, both as an author and in the field before you retired?
They were pretty funny. When I was writing my first book, there would be a lot of tiptoeing around and eye rolling, mom's working on her novel kind of thing. But, they were respectful of the time I wanted to just leave me alone. So because I am writing the book, and yeah, they don't do that anymore. None of the eye rolling anymore. So
that's good. There's no more eye rolling.
yeah.
I don't know, Nancy. It sounds like you retired from the bakery, and it definitely sounds like you retired. I know that for a while, I've got friends that have retired, but my dad is an artist, and I don't know that he will ever retire. I mean, he retired as a professor, but I don't know that he'll ever retire from art because he really enjoys art. Now, my mom, on the other hand, she's going to a meeting of the, matter of fact, she might be at the heading there now, but she's going to a meeting of the trust fund that she helped to found, which is kind of the cigarette money, the Golden Leaf Foundation. But she's been retired from that for probably a little bit over a decade, if not close to a decade, and everything like that. And she did serve on some boards even after she retired from that job. And of course, she had the radio station, Z. Smith Reynolds, a number of other jobs, including running for Secretary of State for North Carolina and everything way back when. But she, as she likes to put it, I'm retired. Meaning I'm retired. I will deal with my grandsons, which are my nephews and everything like that. But in terms of like, she will go to an event like this dinner for a fellow board member that was on the board of Golden Leaf, even when she was there and everything like that. But she's not serving on any board. She's totally given up on boards and everything like that. So I was just wondering, would you consider both of you to be really retired, or kind of like my dad, partially retired? Because I do think that some people don't know about this notion, because some people, when they think of retirement, they're like, well, I'm just going to go travel. I'm going to go do everything that I wanted to do when I was working so hard, the way that Nancy described it and everything like that. How much do you consider yourself truly retired, or do you serve on boards in other organizations and are still active, either as a teacher or something else? I'll start with you, Cassie, but I want to hear from you as well.
Well, I am retired from doing the forensic work. Although, as I said earlier, I am available should there, should a commercial airliner go down or something that they need a lot of help. But I'm not retired from writing. I'm still writing. So I've just shifted to a different, I've done that my whole working life, gone from university professor to forensic consultant to writer to, TV producer. So
done it all. What about yourself, Nancy? Do you consider yourself retired now that you're not really doing the baking except for the fund kind of baking?
Fun part of it. I'm thinking, yeah, it's really about writing right now. I'm thinking about doing the man's version of Swipe Left and collaborating with some men to get their perspective on women's dating profiles. So that's sort of on the back burner. I've written 2 children's books because the poem that inspired the book, Swipe Left, ends with just save your money, time, and energy, swipe left, and adopt a cat or a dog. So I wrote a children's book called My Little Max, The Gift of Friendship. And it's about my dog, my little white fluffy dog, Max. And that's recently published. So I have another book that I'm about to publish called A Dog Like Me, which is a story about a Caribbean shelter dog looking for his forever family. So I'm going to get to go back to my favorite Caribbean island, St. Martin, to promote that book. So that'll be a little bit of a job.
I have a potcake dog from Turks and Caicos.
Oh, aren't the island dogs great?
Yeah, he's a great dog. Yeah, obviously, his name is Turk. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love the Turks and Caicos.
That makes a great name for a dog and everything. Mom actually saw her dog. She wanted a dog, and my brother actually got her a big dog because my brother has a dog, Enzi, I believe is the name. I know it begins with an I, so I'm pretty sure it's Enzi and everything like that. But it's like a Grand Pyrenees, so it's a very big dog. I think Malik tried to give her one of those dogs. Then he tried to give her a little dog. Unfortunately, that little dog is Walter, and Walter is very much an energetic dog and everything like that. So Mom basically turned the dog back over to my younger brother and was like, "No, I'm sorry, that dog has got way too much energy." And my mom is in her mid 80s, so like she's 20 years old, 83, so pushing near mid 80s and everything like that. So she's like, I cannot handle this dog. So the dog got to visit Mom's house on Thanksgiving, and even then she was like, because I think Malik was decently saying, I'm gonna give you back the dog, and Mom was like, no, you're not. I'm not taking that dog. It's too much energy for me in this particular house, and all along those lines, because she was thinking that, and I understand why she wanted the dog, because she's wanted it for companionship, to your point, and everything like that. So I can understand wanting the dog for companionship, but she was not going to have it and everything. What would you say is the message of the books, the children's books and everything that you wrote, including the one, and what have you learned from your dog, the first book and everything? So what have you learned from your dog?
Well, the message is that these beautiful furry creatures provide so much to us, things that we don't even understand. At the end of the day, you're stressed out, you walk through the door, there they are, and they're just looking at you with these little eyes, and they're not judgmental, and they don't have they don't make your day worse. They can turn everything around. They're always there for you, and we're always there for them. They depend on us as much as we depend on them, and they bring so much joy into our lives. And last week, our local school district had something called a teach-in our county here. And so I went to an elementary school and I read My Little Max to 8 first grade classes. And it was the most joyous experience, just watching these kids light up and talking to them about writing and the illustrator, and that they're so smart, and they're just talking about their dogs and how important their dogs are to them when they get home from school at the end of the day. And it was just really a really wonderful experience. And I just think that that's our dogs are there to give us and provide, just so much love. And I just want to spread that.
No, I agree. That's a great message to spread, and I agree with you on that. I've had dogs and cats. I think the last one was I was doing some cat sitting for some neighbors upstairs, but that was a couple of years ago. But I enjoyed it. I don't think my window enjoyed it that much because they did tear down some blinds that I had to get replaced because I am busy with cultural work. So I was gone. So I think the cat was like, well, if he's not here, I'm going to make my own game time and everything like that. So it started having its own situation in that kind of way. But yeah, I'm a big fan of pets. I've even had some unusual pets. Like I know as a kid, we had a goat and a raccoon in addition to the cat. And then we've definitely had, I've had geckos because one of the geckos, the young lady was going to work in theater. So she gave me fettuccine, Alfredo, and linguine. And yes, she did name them all after Italian dishes and all along those lines. And she gave others to other friends of hers. So I think she gave away about 10 or 15. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the pets and all along those lines. As a matter of fact, I was going to show you young ladies, and that's what I was looking for and everything. So hopefully y'all can see it. But that's Walter, which is the young dog and everything like that. And that's Indy, which is the big dog and everything like that. So that's the dogs that were there. But yeah, Walter was having too much fun running around the house and definitely was having its own moment and everything. So it did go back home to Malik's house, my brother's house, because mom was thinking the dog was going to be too much energy and not one that she could maintain keeping up that energy. And of course, dogs aren't always trained and everything like that. So the dog will make a mess as well. Have you two ladies become addicted, or as much, like I said, I do sometimes watch Bones and some of the cop shows, but there are other addictions. And one of those addictions is some of the things on TikTok. And you can definitely tell that it is human made, but there are these lovely cat podcasts and dog podcasts. And I have become slightly addicted to those because they are kind of the play of, what they think a cat would answer if it was answering in a human tone and everything. So like sometimes the cat will knock down some furniture and then in the podcast, it'll be like, yeah, I did that intentionally. Or they'll say something about the pointers, but there's a number of these kind of podcasts that are done in the style of 2 dogs or 2 cats in a podcast and everything like that. So I don't know if y'all have seen those, but they are somewhat funny and somewhat enjoyable. So I know they're on TikTok. I think they're also on Facebook.
Yeah, I've seen a few of them. They are very clever. Yeah.
Yeah, they're quite cool.
So sorry, but I have another interview coming up.
No, and I'm going to wrap up. There's something that I do for everybody, and this whole thing has been very good, and I'm glad to have this time to learn more about what you do as well as what Nancy does. So one of the things I get everybody to do, so I'll start with you since I know you got to go first, Kathy, and all along those lines is, if there's anything that you haven't had a chance to talk about in this interview that you want to share with the audience, and I'm very much about people giving positivity. So any guests that I have, I get them to share their message of positivity and also how they can be contacted or they can get their books purchased. So I will start with you, Kathy, since you got it.
I just positively hope that they will get the book and then read the book and enjoy the book. The book is wherever you buy books. There, you can buy it online, you can buy it in stores, you can buy it, wherever, you can download it. So it's out there.
Okay. And what's your message of positivity? Because it's a global network. So I like to spread messages of positivity, whatever that message may be for you that you would share to this world.
Well, message of positivity. Based on my own experience, I had never written a novel, never written fiction. I decided I would go for it. And I'm glad I did. So if you have an idea, you have some project, or you have something you want to do, go for it. That would be my go for it.
No, I appreciate it. And that's a great message of positivity. Definitely want to thank your publicist for making you available and everything. And hopefully you can come back onto this show as well as some of our other shows, because definitely I love hearing about the creative work process and everything like that. So I think we've learned something even of your own process. Just really quickly, because I know you got to go to the other interview. What words of advice would you give to somebody other than go for it if they wanted to write a book and turn it into anything? Because I know everybody thinks that they've got the great book in them, but a lot of us are afraid to write that book or even that TV series or that movie and everything. So what, other than just go for it, what advice would you give to people and get an agent to if they are interested in writing?
I would suggest they get some training in creative writing, take a course in creative writing. And also, I think in almost every city and town, there must be a writer's group. Right. Join a writer's group and you can critique each other's work and get feedback, and that kind of collective experience can be reinforcing.
Okay. Last thing, and then I promise I'll let you go, and then I'll get to Nancy's last questions as well. What have you loved most about Charlotte? Because I do have brothers in Charlotte. I'm a big fan of North Carolina. I love our culture and everything like that. And definitely Durham is rich in music, but Charlotte has got some good sports teams, at least and it looks like they might even have one going to do well in the NFL this year, because it looks like they might be able to manage to get into the playoffs. At least they're in the hunt. We'll see if they actually make it. But what is things that you love about Charlotte and also Canada when you're there?
Well, I love the 4 seasons here. I love that it's very mild, that we have some winter, but it's very reasonable and it's very short. That's not the case in Canada. Those winters are very long and very harsh. And I like the fact that, as you pointed out, we have major league sports teams here in basketball, football, not hockey. We got hockey up where you are, I think, right? And, there's good theater. There's a good art scene, great restaurants. So I just think Charlotte's and yet we're 3 hours from the beach. I spend a lot of time. I have a second home down at Isle of Palms, so I can hop in the car and be down there in 3 hours.
Sounds great, and the beach is wonderful, no doubt about it. Nancy, and I know as Cassie's going out the door and everything, what is your love of Orlando? Because I know that that's a great beach area. I keep saying I'm gonna go back to SeaWorld. The last time I was at Disney, it's been a minute. I've been to Miami for a couple of film festivals, but the last time I was at Orlando, and this all to date my again, was actually when Elvis died. I was there with my grandmother, so that was the last time that I was actually at Orlando and SeaWorld. So I know a lot's changed in those many decades since the last time that I was at SeaWorld, but I am a fan of dolphins and sea life and stuff like that. So I would love to get back there. I have been to Miami as recently as this year, because I was there for a podcasting conference that was there right at the Intercontinental, and I may go back next year, this year coming up, if the network sends me there, even though they're trying to send me to South by Southwest in Texas, and I've never been to Texas. So if I make it to that one, that'll be my first time to Texas. But what do you love about Orlando?
Well, the quality of life here. Again, we have even milder winters, but it does get cold here. We get a couple of good cold snaps every year, but they're short-lived. Summers can be rough, but you adapt to that. We're the tourist capital of the world, but I don't live in the tourist area. We've got, Orlando City Soccer. We've got our Orlando Magic. So we've got sports. We've got great culture, beautiful facilities with top-notch entertainment. So I just love the mild climate.
Oh yeah, the mild climate is definitely wonderful and everything like that.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm still recovering from the flu.
You need some water, I think.
Yeah.
I know.
Get some water.
Excuse me.
Yeah. While she's getting that water and everything, I know you got it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sign off. So
thank
you so much for having me.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad to be able to have you, and hopefully we'll get you back on some other shows as well. But I thoroughly enjoyed learning about the show and the book, and we'll definitely continue promoting the book as well.
Thank you so much. Nancy, it was a pleasure.
Nice talking with you too. Thank you for your advice.
not sure how to do this. There's no
There's a button that should say exit. It's like a little arrow.
that one. No.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Or
look
you
like.
can, or you just click the X on the top of the computer. That'll work as well.
Is that it? No.
I can remove you.
Carry on amongst yourselves. Right.
I like to
Entertain
remove you.
ourselves. Oh my gosh, excuse me. Okay.
Oh, no problem. Not like you're having that whole cold thing going on.
Well, I've
and
had
everything
the
like that.
flu. I had a flu, and I'm better, but there's a little remnant there.
Wow. Yeah, a little remnant of the flu. I know how that can be. At least it wasn't that other stuff that was out there as well, and it's still out there because I know some of my friends that have had still cases of COVID. So at least it was only a cold or a flu because I know I've even come down with the sniffles and stuff. So I'm trying to make sure to stay healthy also. So what advice would you give to, not advice, but what words of positivity would you give to our listening audience? And if there's anything that you haven't talked about in terms of the dating profile, because I'm definitely much fascinated. And like I said, I've seen some of those horror stories. So if there's anything I can do with the male side of the book, I can definitely share some of my stories. I've done that during this interview, but yeah, there's a couple of them that I knew were quite interesting and all along those lines and everything like that.
Well, I would say my book is for women to entertain, educate, and empower. And if you're on the dating apps, if you know someone that's on the dating apps, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's a friend, and they're struggling, this book, I'm going to hold it up. It's right here. This book is worth its weight in gold. Swipe Left. It's available on Amazon.com. It's available on BarnesandNoble.com, and it's also an ebook. So it's easy to find, and it's called Swipe Left. So I would say just women need to swipe smart. And in order to swipe smart, you need to know what to look for out there on those profiles. And don't believe everything you see. People are telling you who they are. Pay attention. Try not to lead with your heart. Lead with your head.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Just really quickly, along those same lines, because I know that I've been accused of this by family members of mine, and I know people on the apps have been accused of this as well. How much do you think there is a problem of oversharing? Because even sometimes, and every story that I've told today, I've got pretty much clearance to tell those stories from family members. But I do know that sometimes I have been told that I overshare, and even some of and I know people sometimes overshare on their profiles and everything like that. So how much of that is a problem as well, where people are maybe telling more than needs to be told, maybe to encourage people to get them to like them or to swipe the correct way and everything like that. But I'm just wondering, because it does seem to me that we are just like the people pleasing, we can also be victims of oversharing.
Exactly. And there's oversharing, and then there's trauma dumping.
Right.
So there's a fine line between telling someone about yourself, and you can go sideways real fast, especially if you've just come out of a marriage, a divorce, and that sharing turns into trauma dumping really fast. So just keep it simple, keep it sweet. If someone asks you a question, answer it. You don't have to, have verbal diarrhea. Just answer the question and then ask them a question. Have a conversation. It's a give and take. I've been on dates where I basically felt like I was just propped up in the chair and I was there to listen to someone talk for 2 hours. I mean, that's not a conversation. So nor would I want to do that to anybody. But it's really interesting when you are meeting someone for the first time, whether it's on something like this, whether it's a Zoom or a video chat or a phone conversation. It's amazing what you'll learn about someone when you ask them a question, a simple question. Tell me about your job. Tell me about your family. I mean, some people will be like, oh, I have 2 kids. They're, 6 and 9, and they're in elementary school, and Johnny plays soccer, and Cindy dances. How about your kids? Tell me about your kids. Or they're just gonna, now you've given them the stage, and there they go. So oversharing, nobody wants too much information. just listen and then ask a question. It should be a back and forth, not an interrogation. And you shouldn't be acting like, you're supposed to be sharing your entire life with someone on a phone call, a video call, or a first date.
No, I agree with you on that, and I definitely can agree with the trauma dumping and everything like that, because I have, and I'm sure you're aware of this, and like I said, we've got a show on the network that talks about narcissists, just like your book touches on that as well. It's called Where is the Love? Because both of them have been victims of bullying, meaning both Stephanie Hockenhall and her son, Gene, and everything like that. Gene Francis, well, he's got a new name that he goes by now, and I can't remember what that name is. You have to watch the show on Sundays at 6 and everything like that. But I do know that they talk about the bullying that they've gone through and that whole notion. But I do know that even in my own situation, I brought it up on their show, that there have been people that have been in bad relationships, and then they bring that, and that might be something I would share in a book if I was to help you with the male version of it, where they share too much of that in their profile and all along those lines, because it's like the toxicity that they received, they put it onto the next relationship, and that's not a good thing to do. But I do know that is something that, and it's not just women, men do it as well. They put it onto the next relationship.
Punish somebody for someone else's errors.
Right, but and both men and women do that. They punish them for the other person's error and everything like that, and that it definitely impacts the relationship.
If you have trust issues from someone that mistreated you or that cheated on you, that's really hard. That's a hard one, right? Because once someone does that to you and you carry that on, that's a real challenge to trust somebody when someone's hurt you like that. And it's very understandable to do that, but that's where communication, open communication comes in. You have to look, someone was really dishonest with me and cheated on me. So, I've got a little issue with that. Let's talk about this. Instead of punishing the person and assuming they're going to treat you the same way, you have to be honest about that and come forth so they're sensitive to how that affects you and how their behavior may affect you.
Yeah, that makes
we
sense.
should learn from our last relationships, and it's to be a growth period.
Definitely should be a growth period. Just in your book and everything, and in the profiles, how much does it touch on? Because as you were talking, I was just thinking about this, even in my own life and own dating situations. Does it touch on the folks that are, and I hate to put it this way, looking for, I won't say an extension of their family, but looking for a father figure or looking for a mother figure? Because that's something else that I've seen people that have kids, not saying all, but some people that have kids, you can already tell, because sometimes they'll even put it in their profile that they are wanting somebody to help them with their parenting or help them with something along those lines. And in my mind, this is just me, you may disagree, Nancy, but I think that you have to you want to learn to be respected by the child if there's a child involved and everything like that, but you have to make sure that you're in the relationship and that the relationship with the person is together before you can even get to the point of bringing the kid into the relationship and everything like that. But I know some people on their dating profiles, they'll be like, they'll be very honest and they'll tell you that they've got kids, but they'll also sometimes tell you, and you have to be good with the kids, and you have to be like almost like they're auditioning for a parent.
That's a heavy thing to put on somebody right out of the box in a dating profile. I think that would be oversharing. If that's what you're looking for, it's going to really eliminate most of the options, I would say, because if I was a guy and I saw that in a dating profile, I'd run. Because you start slow, you build that slowly. I mean, you don't meet a woman knowing that, okay, well, now I have a girlfriend and I'm expected to be a father figure to her children. That's that's a very unhealthy way to put yourself out there. Present yourself, and something wonderful may happen. That's a kind of a demanding approach, I would say.
No, I agree. And it even gets worse as they get older and everything like that. Because the cousin that is now retired from GBI work and looking at being a PI and everything like that, his brother Actually, and it worked for them, but it doesn't work for everybody. When he met and married his wife, he already had a child from a previous relationship, and she had children and grandchildren. His parents, who are not living now, I don't know that they were all that fond of that. And I know even in my own dating life, I've dated women that have not just children, but also grandchildren. And that is definitely some heavy conversations, but I don't know if you want to have them automatically in the beginning of the relationship. You might have them as you get to know the person and everything like that. But as you get older, and definitely I'm in my early 60s now, there are definitely people that it wouldn't just be a matter of a automatic, if it was a truly not just a dating situation, but a family situation, it would be like automatic familyhood, like immediate familyhood, but also automatic grandparenthood.
Well, if you've come out of a divorce and you have your own kids, and then the woman that you're dating or the man you're dating expects a blended family right out of the bat, that's a lot to handle. I mean,
Right.
People need some time to really build their own relationship, and then that all happens gradually and organically. You just can't put everything out there like that to start.
No, I
Because
agree.
it's about the two people that are meeting, not right away. It's not about anybody else.
No, it's not about the extended family. And the last thing, then we'll get ready to wrap the show up and everything like that, is that I also find people that are, and I see this sometimes on dating profiles. I don't know how much you see it on women profiles, but I definitely see it on guy profiles. They are interested in finding somebody that is younger than them. And part of that is because I think that they still know that we all have including guys, we might not admit it, but we all have we have a timeline in the sense of our longevity in life, but we also sometimes have a timeline in how often and how safe we can be, because you can have kids even at late life as a male, but the health of the child may not be all that well and everything like that. But I do know some people that will try to get with younger women and even put that on their profiles, both men and women, because they are still hoping to have children if they don't have any, and all along those lines. So I've seen those on profiles as well, and sometimes I think that that's a case of oversharing.
I would agree.
Because I have seen people put that, and I'm going like, wait a minute, I gotta decide whether I like you. That was we're gonna have kids.
Yeah. Why would you start out talking about having children now?
Yeah.
I would definitely swipe left on that one.
Yeah, that's a quick swipe. I understand that.
No question about it.
No doubt. Just really quickly, and if you could share your message of positivity, and I'm gonna play, and I meant to get it for the Kathy as well, but I'm gonna play one of our PSAs. I think it's the one about education. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as to the importance of education. But before I get to that, if we get out of here, what is your message of positivity for our global audience and everything? Not just to buy the book, because we're definitely going to hopefully make some sales of your book and everything like that. But your message of global positivity, because I am one that believes as more positive words we put out, whether you're right or left, pink or green, or whatever, black or white, it doesn't matter. But the more positivity we put out there, the better the world, which is why I ask every guest to give a message of positivity. So I figure it's my little small way of helping the world. And it's just a small way, but it's my little small way of helping the world.
Okay. Well, I think the world is full of wonderful people. Most of the people that I've met in my life are wonderful people.
Right.
There are some bad actors out there. There's a lot of toxicity in the world. I would say focus on the positive people in your life, the people that build you up, that make you a better person, that hold you accountable, whether it's a friend or a family member. Just surround yourself with positive people that inspire you and encourage you, and surround you with support and love. It could be a friend, it could be a parent, it could be a teacher, but learn to surround yourself with people that build you up.
No doubt about that. And speaking of teachers, and this will be the last question I'll ask you before we get ready to two questions. One is, how can people reach you if they want to get a copy of the book? And I know that you've got an Instagram, because I did see that on your publicist letter, as well as other things. So how can people reach you if they want to get in touch with you and all along those lines? And then I'll ask the question before I play the last PSA.
Okay, well, as I mentioned, my book is available on Amazon.com. It's called Swipe Left, The Savvy Woman's Guide to Decoding Men's Dating Profiles. It's an ebook and a softcover book as well. And it's on barnesandnoble.com also. And what was the other question?
No, I was getting ready to get to the other question. That was it. Just how you can be reached. Oh, social media, because I do know.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
On
On Instagram, how to contact me. That's right. I'm on Instagram. My page is at Swipe Left Book. And my website is nancyleegoldbranson.com. It's So, but at Swipe Left Book is probably the easiest place to find me on Instagram.
That makes sense. And folks will find you over there. I know that I use Lee Entertainment 62 as my Instagram, and I'll probably put a connection to both you and Kathy on hopefully later on this evening, but no later than tomorrow, and everything like that, so folks can follow you as well. There is a PSA that I play about a guy from Oklahoma, and he was honoring not just the teachers of the world, but also the support staff, because a lot of times people forget that the support staff is part of the education of our children, whether they are our natural children, which I know you have and Kathy had as well, or whether they are like your adopted children, because I know there are a number of people that consider me like their uncle figure and everything like that, and there are a number of people that are like that are out there that we not have kids, but we have people that we mentor in one way or another. But I oftentimes think of the support staff because my grandmother was a cafeteria worker. I've got friends that have been janitors and actually wrote speaking of short stories, a short story like a mini skit that was about some of the people that we run into that we don't oftentimes know that we're learning lessons from them. So in this particular play, I think it's called Confessions of a Buppy and everything like that. It talked about getting the lessons from like the homeless person, from the janitor at a corporate office, because sometimes the janitor knows where the bones are hidden. Speaking of bones and everything like that, good to know the janitor and all along those lines in terms of people that can help you even on your corporate rise and things like that. So I think of even in the school environment, the SRO officer, the people that help with security, the guidance counselor, because my mom was a guidance counselor, as well as the cafeteria workers and a number of other people, that it isn't just the teachers, but the support staff. So before I bring this commercial and then get us out of here, what would your message be about about the importance of education, but also the importance of their support?
Well, I think there's different ways to educate yourself, whether it's a college, university, or a trade school. Just get out there and do something. Make sure you graduate from high school, and during that period, discover your interests. If you find something that you love, figure out a way if you can make a living on that. Whether it's going to a trade school or a college, university, make sure that what you study there's going to be an actual career and a job and a market for what you've studied once you graduate. So you don't have to do something that you weren't really hoping that you had to do to pay the bills. So educate yourself and never stop learning.
Nope. I agree with you on that. And on that same note, as we get ready to play this commercial and everything, I do believe that, particularly in this day and time, none of us really have one job. That might have been the days of our grandparents and great grandparents, but most of us have at least 2 or 3 jobs. I've got a friend that drives for a couple of friends that drive for Uber, but then they've also got other interests. One of them is a musician. One of them is looking to figure out their next career move and all along those lines. But definitely I've got friends that also drive for DoorDash and might be working in a corporate office or something like that. So just about everybody that I know has multiple jobs. Either they have multiple jobs or multiple duties within the same job, which is the same as having multiple jobs in some way or another. So definitely it seems like we are in a more multitasking kind of society now, and I don't see that that's going to change even with AI and everything like that. I think we're just going to be in this mode for decades, if not centuries to come. At least that's my opinion. I think you might agree with me, Nancy, on that and everything like that. So
I do.
on that note, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to play this commercial about what award they're giving in Oklahoma. I think they've been giving it since 2012, if I remember correctly. It comes up on the commercials, the year that they started and everything like that. But I'll play that, and then I'll get both of us out of here, so we'll be both off the screen while the commercial is playing. But I thoroughly enjoyed talking to both of you and Kathy and everything. And this is what we do. I just come together, bring at least one or two, sometimes 3 or 4 people together, and we just kind of like learn about each other and have a fun time. So I hope you enjoyed it. I think Kathy enjoyed it. So I hope you had
I did enjoy it. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So we're going to go out with this commercial, and hopefully we'll get you back on some future shows as well, like I told Miss Kathy and everything. So definitely, I thoroughly enjoyed having you, and hopefully we'll get you back in the not too distant future.
Well, thank you so much.
No problem.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you. I thank you for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.
I won't fold.